I'm sorry. We'll put this. No, that's good. Okay.
Story of that? What do you want? Well, they would, about the cookies and everything to get it better. Did anybody want the cookies, getting the adult beverages or everything?
It's much easier if you use less.
I didn't know if anyone went up to Shookies getting an adult beverage for the evening, because the choice is yours, so you're free to do as you like, so, but if not, that's fine too. We have water. So, do you folks want stories, or do you want to ask more questions? Well, I'm good. Okay. Now, you've heard different stories from me. I mean, I've told you about You're the One, okay? And you've heard the story about, I'm trying to think what else I covered the other day. Oh, the trial. Yeah, that thing. You want to hear stories about healings? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and sit down. It'll be a little bit easier for me. Are we all set now? Okay. Is this going the right way? I'll just say. It's me. Okay, a lot of the times the healings that have happened here, many times are impromptu. And it's been an interesting time being me. Because there'd be so many times I'd be the only person in this building at night after a day or a long week of work. All the staff or anyone would have gone home. And I'd have been the only person in this whole place on the entire campus. And I needed to be sleeping in one of the rooms down the hall here, or, you know, just working late into the evening just because that's what I did, because I was pretty much alone and didn't really have anything else to do. So I keep working until I couldn't take it anymore. So a lot of days for me to do a 16 to 18 hour work day straight through. And it just became part of my life for so many years. It's just what I did. But it wasn't uncommon to be alone in the building at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and hear this bam, bam, bam on the east end doors of the compound here of the campus. And those doors would just rattle, and you could hear them all through the place. And no matter where I was, I would, drop what I was doing and go down there not knowing what was going to be on the other side of the door. But so many times I'd open up the door and there would be a person or a group would be standing there, and a person right in front would have tears streaming down their face. And they'd say, "Forgive me, we had no idea why we're here, but God told us to come here." And Larry didn't know what to do. Well, that's kind of a tough situation to be in, because I never got a message on what to do. But there'd be an individual or a group of people, and they were just so full of tears and emotion. I just said, "Well, come on in." And ended up bringing them in and listening to their story. And there was never a short story. It was always something that just went on, and you get their whole life story and things like that. And I said it was just basically like they were emotionally vomiting on me because they had all this in them, they just had to get it out. And so I just really let them go through their whole ordeal. Then staying up late in the evening, I invariably end up finding them rooms and saying, okay, well, here's a place for you to rest, you've had a long trip. The first time this happened, when I answered the door, there were three women. And the one woman apparently was dying, and she had final phases of breast cancer, and she had no real extra hope. They tried everything in Germany to try to take care of her. And they started looking at the Knight Healing Center, KNAIPP, which is what was very popular in Germany, still is. And the Knight spas, you have to sign up years in advance to get there. Well, they started looking for the Knight Healing, and they found out that there was a place in North America that was a Knight Healing Center, and so they hopped on planes and got here. And they came here looking for help. And because they couldn't get into Germany, so they came here, but we weren't doing anything like that. I was sanding floors and fixing radiators and patching roofs, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But these women showed up, and so I listened to their story, got in the room. The next morning they get up, and without any knowledge on my part or having told anyone, Irv Koska, who did the healing service here today, he shows up about 10 a.m. the next morning. Just unannounced, he shows up. He drove an hour away from Elkhart, Indiana. And I said, what are you doing here? And he says, well, I was at Mass this morning, and the Blessed Mother told me that I needed to go to Rome City. And I said, okay, come on in. We've been waiting. So Irv comes in, and I introduced the three German ladies, and they were very, very cheerful, even though they were kind of celebrating the end of this woman's life, and they were going to go to the Knight Center. Well, Irv comes in, and he says, so which one of you birds is in trouble? And I didn't understand the concept of a bird, but he proceeded to pray over all of them, and we solemnly prayed over it as best we could. And they ended up enjoying the day, and Irv left. And then, well, it was about 3 weeks, a month later, I ended up getting a phone call from one of the women that was in the group from Germany. And I said, well, I was expecting that they were going to give me notice of the one woman that passed away. And I said, well, how are things going for you? I said, the gate is in. Which means how are you today? And she said, we're fine. We're not shocked, not bad. And I said, well, so what's the news? Cancer's gone. She goes, yes, there's no cancer. They can't find any cancer. And she's been healed. We want to thank her. I said, well, you're more than welcome. But they wanted to then come back and send more people. And I said, well, you're welcome. And I said, but I didn't do anything. And they said, no, you did. But we have to let people know. And I said, well, you do whatever you feel is in your heart. But that was one of those, just kind of like out of the blue situations. And then this happened with a more rapid frequency. And I said, it would be about every 3 months, somebody would be at that door banging on it, coming in from different places. They came in from Australia, they came in from Japan, they came in from all parts of the United States. And I don't know how many times I've heard that same phrase, God told us to come to Rome City, and there you know what to do. And I don't know how many times the people up at the grocery store in town or the town marshal get pulled over And they say, what are you looking for? Well, we're looking for Larry. So he found Marshall and says, oh, you want the guy up there in the building up there, on the hills. And it said, Larry's up there. So it's like, the town people started looking at me like, who is this freak? And they talk, you go into a restaurant and they be talking. You walk in and all of a sudden there's crickets. And it got to be kind of uncomfortable. So I ended up kind of becoming more of a recluse here on the property because I didn't really feel welcome because they were uncomfortable, not feeling comfortable with me. I didn't want that kind of response. But it was just kind of the hand that was dealt. But, I tried not to make it an issue, but it wasn't me really. But it's been a difficult path. But there was another time. And this is kind of funny. There was a elderly Jewish couple stopped by. And they didn't say anything about Larry or anything like that, but they came. And I didn't know what to do, but they were kind of asking questions about the place, and business, and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm kind of giving them a tour. And the wife was able to see that the husband was blind. And apparently he been blinded, something had happened with his optical nerves. And it wasn't really explained to me, but he was blind. And she was assisting him, and he was walking along, being patient, and I could see he was a bit agitated because he couldn't see anything. But I'm sitting there trying to describe the architecture and things like this. To the best of my ability, to try to paint a picture of this thing, because he hadn't always been blind. And so getting a little bit irritated, we finally got down in here in the chapel, came to the doors back there, we were in the back, and he finally got angry with me. This is where he gets French again. So, he said, where's the water? And I said, there's water everywhere. I said, you need a drink? I said, I'll get you a drink of water. He said, no. I said, where's the water? And I said, man, we got water everywhere. What do you need? And he goes, well, where do you take people when you want water? And I said, what do you mean you want water? I said, I kind of got it. I said, do you want to drink the water? Do you want to wash in the water? What do you want to do? And he says, I want to wash in the water. And I said, did somebody suggest to you to come here to wash in the water? He says, none of your fucking business. I go, oh, okay. So we'll take you down and get you some water. He was just getting a little bit irritated. So I took him down to the well. I grabbed a couple of towels along the way. And he started splashing in the water with his wife's help, like a little duck. So he's like washing and rinsing and just flooding his face with this water for several minutes. It's going on. I'm like, that's a passionate burst of water splashing there. And he's going on and on and on. And finally, we got him a towel and he toweled off. And he took the towel away from his face and started just kind of like moving his head around a little bit, and then finally fixated on his wife, who was standing next to him. And he just said, hello, beautiful. Tears down her face. Flooding. He didn't know what to say. It's the first time in 18 years he'd seen his wife. He looks at me and says, what is this place? And I said, well, it was a healing center. And I said, but it's also, and we've already used the word alleged today, so that's on the record, so I'm not going to say it again. I said, this is an apparition center of the Virgin Mary. And he goes, oh, we don't believe in that shit. And I go, well, what do you mean? He says, well, we're Jews. I said, so is she. And he goes, well, it's a Catholic thing. I said, she wasn't Catholic. She was a Jew. I said, she lived her life as a Jew. So is Jesus. And I said, but you know, I got to thank you. And all Catholics thank you and the Jews in particular. I said, you are the start of our Catholic faith. I said, if it wasn't for the Jews, there wouldn't have been Catholics. And I said, you got to understand, we're all connected. And I said, and this is why you've been invited here, to have this healing, if that's what it is. I don't know if it's going to last. I don't know what your problem was. And I said, but apparently you were led here by the grace of God. And God doesn't care. God loves you. Jesus loves you. But if Mary brought you here, you know, you were brought here by a Jew. And he started to cry. And he said, I am so sorry. I said, well, don't apologize to me. I said, you know, I don't care. And he goes, well, who should I apologize to? I said, I go and apologize to the Jew on the cross. And so he and his wife came back in, and I left them alone here for 30 minutes or so, and they really had an emotional outburst. He came out and afterward, and he said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And I said, it's okay. They said, you were in pain. I said, how do you feel now? And he says, different. He says, you taught me something that I could lose everything to get. And I said, you didn't lose it all. I said, it was always there. You just had to be reminded of it. I said, so, you know, just don't be so hard on the Catholics if you don't mind. So they left, and they never really came back again, but that's okay. And there was another time, there was a woman from Seymour, Indiana, which is a small farming community down south of Indianapolis, down towards Bloomington, if anyone cares, but it's about a 3.5 hour drive away. Well, it was a Saturday, and I was the only person here. Ruby had been here earlier in the morning, and she was working, and she got to be midday, and she left and went home, so I was alone again, typically. So I'm working in my office and trying to, you know, take care of some business. And I look out the window, and I can see out the parking lot there, and there's a car that was sitting down by the waterfall area, and it had been out there for a couple of hours now. It was getting to be pretty darn hot. And the sun was coming over the car, and it was going to keep getting pretty warm, and I could see that this person was still in the car. And so we had a lot of water here, and we used to bottle the water, and we had lots of cold water, so I figured, well, you know, I'll grab a couple bottles of water and go out there and offer them, you know, a drink. So I go out there, and there's a woman in the car, and I could tell she'd been crying, and crying hard. And she rolls down the window, and I said, it's getting kind of warm. I said, you seem to be here for a while. I said, would you like a drink? She goes, yes. And then I just said, you know, is there anything I can do for you? You have time to talk. This is sure. So I said, why don't we walk and talk, and you know, I'll go and I'll show you around it. So we started walking with our waters. We went down the hill, and I showed her the statue of Holy Bailey Hill. And I told her what we were doing here, and you know, the project was ahead of us, why I was there and the difficulties it was being alone. And my wife came back in Chicago area, being separated all this time, and just, you know, the loneliness that can kind of hard. And she was talking, and she said, well, she says, I kind of understand because my husband cheated on me. I said, well, when did he cheat on you? She says, well, this week, but it's been going on for a while, I found out. And I said, so, what you gonna do about it? She says, well, I'm from Seymour, and I started driving this morning, and I went to West Lafayette. And so we both met at Purdue. We met at a football game. And she said, I was in the parking lot of the football stadium, and I was gonna shoot myself. Commit suicide because I couldn't go back to Seymour, Indiana, and be disgraced with what he did. And I was going to make him pay. And I said, but you're here. And she goes, I know. Then she said, something told me to put the gun down and to drive. I said, did I tell you to drive to Rome City, Indiana? She goes, no. I just started driving. Now, if anyone wants to take a look at the map, there's no easy way to get from West Lafayette to Rome City, Indiana. You got to take so many lefts and rights and whatever, almost driving through cornfields to get there. There is no interstate that runs you directly. It's all state roads. It's all convoluted. This woman was guided left and right, and was up to the parking lot. And so she had a good cry. And I cried with her. It was hard. And so we walked back to the car. And she gets back in the car. And she reaches down under the seat. She pulls up the gun and points it at me. And I'm just like, oh dear God, not this way, not now. I really thought she was going to kill me and kill herself. That was the impulse for her. And I just said a quick prayer. I said, please, no. This is not the time. And she says, can you take care of this? And I said, I most certainly can. So I collected the gun and put it away, emptied it, and put it in my pocket. I said, I'll take care of this. I'll get rid of it. And I said, what are you going to do? She says, well, if you could do this, I can go home. And I can talk to my husband and see if he still loves me. And I said, well, if you find out he does, ask him if he'll go to counseling. And she said, well, we don't have any money for that. And I said, do you know if there's a Catholic church in your area? Or maybe nearby? Maybe not the one next to you, but one adjacent to you. She goes, oh yeah. And I said, I'll tell you what. You go to church or get there right after church. If you don't want to go to church, you can talk to the priest. And I said, I will guarantee you, he will help you. And he will talk to you, and he will counsel you. And I said, he will not charge you. You tell him what you told me. Tell him where I sent you. So she did. And so she was so confident with this young priest that she met that she got her husband to go meet him. They went and had lunch. And then the husband had to like him. And so they started the counseling process. They weren't Catholic. They weren't even going to church. But they started counseling, and they reconciled. They ended up moving away from Seymour to another town, so they could start over again. And then they started taking classes. And this young priest moved them, and they were back. That was 2 years later. So that was kind of cool. And I didn't get killed. And the marriage was sealed, and two people were converted out of love to join the church. So, you know, and it's really hard for me a lot of times to tell these things because they're not just stories. These are emotional vomiting for me. Because so much of the stuff gets held inside. But it's when events like this happen where I get an opportunity to talk about it. It actually is not just interesting for you, but it's helpful for me. Because in a way, I know a lot of people think that this is so wonderful and so easy. But every time something like this happens, it takes a piece of you. And it doesn't go back. It gets replaced with something else. I don't know exactly what that something else is. But what it does is it hardens you and makes you toughened against the next attack that's going to happen. You get hardened like steel because the stresses and the struggles have not gotten easier. A lot of people thought, well, after the trial, nothing could have been worse than that. I'm sorry. That's what just started. The real attacks are about to still come. And there'll be attacks on me. And I've been attacked all throughout my time here. I've been escorted off the property no less than 4 times by the state police because of death threats. It's a real scary feeling when you're being escorted by 3 state troopers to the Illinois line to get you to hell into the state so that their job is done, that they protected you. And then it's a real scary feeling when they all peel off and they're not with you anymore, you're on your own. And all you've been told is that we have a credible threat that somebody's out to kill you. Then we have to find them. Don't come back until we tell you it's clear. I didn't do anything. But it didn't matter to someone who wanted to sit there and say that this guy up there needs to be killed because I don't like him. Or he's a freaking Catholic. You know, this town used to be at one time 96% Roman Catholic. It's probably less than 6% now. It's not a matter of scorekeeping, but it's a matter of doing the right thing and keeping up with, what's right is right. And that's what we've been trying to do here, bringing things back. And sometimes it's just so easy and so tempting just to say, let somebody else do it. I'm out here. But then I look at Al, my friend. I don't remember where Al's at right now, but he's. And I look at you, and I think to myself, well, who else would do this? It's got to be somebody. And I always knew that when I answered on the 3rd time to our Blessed Mother on July the 15th of year 2000 out in the parking lot out there. When she asked me if I would do as she asked, and she didn't tell me what it was, I said yes. And she asked me 3 times, and I said yes. On the 3rd time, I knew that I was going to be thrown under the bus. I just didn't know that the bus would be so damn big. And the bus runs over you again and again. But it's okay, because the bus doesn't kill you. It just tries to make you give up. And that's what the devil is. So, all this week, there have been multiple attacks. And it happens every time we invite a group in like this, so I know that something's about to happen. If there's not an attack for the season, I think something's wrong. And this week there's been multiple attacks, not just on me, but Herb, who was doing the healing service today. The man suffered greatly this week. But we talked a number of times. I said, Herb, I said, it's going to be an awesome weekend. He said, we got to collect and give me a lot of fruit. And he says, I know it. He says, what happened to you? And because we've been doing this together since 2000. And he says, I said, let me tell you about it. Let me tell you about this. He says, well, he says, well, I've been having the same things and like this and that. He says, it's just been incredible. And he just about, something happened to him, just trying to keep him from getting here today. And it's just one thing after another. And he got out of the car today and I ran into him and said, so, you got your basket, ready to collect the fruit? And he goes, yep. And he says, the harvest is out there. And I said, well, it's ready. He said, I think these people are ready. And I'm ready. And I said, a lady's ready. And he said, well, you got it. So he got home tonight and he talked to me and he said, I barely made it home. I was so exhausted. Because when Herb does this, and there's so many people today, a little bit of him gets taken out each time. And with everything that's going on today, he was just really exhausted. He had a hard time driving back home. And I was a little concerned about that. But he got home, he's okay. And he wants to know if everyone's okay here. And if it was good for you, it was good for him. So he was very happy to be here. The suffering is all worth it. Because we're always looking for the next knock on the door. When someone's going to be there with tears in their eyes saying, forgive me, I had no idea why I'm here. But God told me to come here. Larry didn't know what to do. Did I ever tell you about my first out-of-body experience? You ever heard that? July 14th, 2001. July 14th, 2001 was a Saturday. And that weekend, there was a group of people who had signed up to have a work retreat weekend. They wanted to come up here and help me paint rooms and do all this stuff, and they were going to all show up. And we had 83 people signed up for it. So they did guest rooms, they did rooms for the kids, and rooms for the couples, and mom, and all of this. So we spent 2 weeks getting ready for this 83 people that were going to come in that weekend. We were going to have mass. We were going to have, we had people here to play the music and all like that, all scheduled. Well, they were all supposed to show up that Saturday morning. And so we laid in all kinds of food, paintbrushes, all kinds of supplies, and we had everything organized around like a military exercises to be run by the orders so we could make this a real helpful weekend. So everyone was supposed to show up at 8 a.m. in the morning. And 8 a.m., I was up and ready by 6. I was waiting, working, growing, all like that. My wife had come down from Chicago. Her mother came in from Michigan. Another good friend of mine came up from Louisville to come up and just help organize all these folks. And we all had a plan, meeting the night before, and everyone knew what they were going to do. 8 o'clock comes around, nobody shows. 9 o'clock, nobody shows. 10 o'clock, nobody shows. 12 o'clock, nobody shows. I start making a few phone calls, nobody answers. Nobody showed up, 83 people with families that are registered for this thing. Nobody. What are the odds of that? Well, about noon, then my wife read me the riot act. And she told me, Susan, this is how it's going to be. People are going to sit there and say one thing, they're going to lie to you, you're on your own, they're always going to let you down. They don't care. And I told her, I said, well, they didn't make the promise to Our Lady that they would do as she asked. And I said, so it's not their job. And I understand. I said, so if I have to rebuild this place brick by brick, floor by floor, room by room, I said, I'm going to do it. And so she said, so what are you going to do? I said, well, the next week I had another retreat coming in, and they'd already, paid money and all like that, so it was a different situation. I said, we need 2,000 chocolate chip cookies. And she says, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to start baking cookies. And she goes, you're shipping. And I said, no, I'm going to start baking cookies. So I started mixing bowls up, I started mixing up cookie dough, 25 gallons at a time. I mean, that's a lot of cooking. 2,000 cookies is a lot of dough. And so her mother starts going like a machine. She's got the scoopers going to her all sack. She's next to school, kindergarten teacher, so everything had to be perfect, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, by 5 o'clock that afternoon, we had made up over 2,000 cookies, and I also made up over 300 pounds of sloppy joe. I grew up all this hamburger in the cooking. So we just went like a bunch of beavers, and we just cooked and cooked and cooked. And we knocked that whole thing out. We were all ready then for the next week. We had all the food in the freezer and prepped and ready to go. So we started done. And then it happened. Into the back door of the kitchen, a single woman walked in. And everything else in the property had been locked up. And one woman walks into the back door of the kitchen, and before she says a word, I see a vision of a bathtub Mary. You know what I'm talking about? Those grottos in the people's yards where they cut a bathtub in half, and there's a statue of the Blessed Mother. Look out on the bathtub Mary. And so I see an image of one of those, and the Mary statue looks at me and says, feed them and take them to the hill. So this woman walks in, and what does she say? Forgive me, we have no idea why we're here. But she didn't say that Mary's God told us to come here. She said, we've got a Winnebago out front with 14 people. And I said, yeah. Are you looking for rooms? She goes, no. He says, we're looking for Larry. So I said, okay, well, I'm Larry. So what can I do for you? She says, well, I got Archbishop Leibold's nephew out there with his Winnebago, and we've got all the kids. And Archbishop Leibold, his nephew was namesake Paul Leibold as well. And if you don't know, Archbishop Leibold was Sister Miller's spiritual director, and he's the one that issued the messages and all like that. So he's a very formative guy. Well, his nephew, Paul, was a pharmacist in Cincinnati. And it turns out, I said, I'll tell you what, I said, come on in, I'll get you something to eat, and then I'll show you around. She goes, oh, no, we don't want your food. I said, listen to your mother. Bring them all in. He said, I've got sloppy joes and chocolate chip cookies and potato chips. He said, will that do? She goes, oh yeah. And I said, come on in. I showed her all the stuff I had. I said, I think I've got it done. And so they came in and we all sat down and, you know, I found out my wife was still pissed at me. And so I said, here, you know, here's $100. I said, take your mom, take Mark. I said, you guys go to the Kindleville and get something to eat. I said, I'm gonna take care of these folks, you know, go get yourself something to drink and eat, come on back, and, you know, we'll see what's going on here. So I fed these folks and learned their story, and it turns out that they started out the morning working on their neighbor lady's yard. These folks were neighbors, and they had, between the two families, they had, I think one had like 6 kids, and the other one had like 4. So that was 14 people. And they were got together to fix what vandals had busted up in their neighbor lady's yard. And what did they bust it up? A bathtub mirror. So they had busted up this lady's grotto and destroyed it. So they spent the day in the morning building a new bathtub mirror for this home. And when they were doing all this, they started talking about Our Lady of America and Paul Leibold's uncle, the Archbishop. And so they said, let's go find Rome City. So they finish up their deal with the bathtub Mary, and they hop in the Winnebago, and they start off this great adventure to go find Rome City. They showed up in Rome City, and they said, so you guys want to take a walk? I want to show you some stuff. And he says, oh yeah. So we started walking, I got him down the Holy Family Hill, and we got up there, and at that time, the statue wasn't up there. And it was just a pedestal up there, and there had been, back when the Knight Springs was here, there had been Jesus on the cross with 2 angels, side by side. A lot of them taken down and destroyed. And there hadn't been anything up there at that time. There was just a bunch of logs. And I had been taking people up there to pray the rosary. And I got up there with this family, and I said, this is the hill. We hadn't been Holy Family Hill yet. And I said, we bring people up here a lot of times who come here to pray. And the little boy, there was a little 8-year-old. And this kid was afflicted. He was having seizures, epileptic seizures really bad. So he couldn't eat the sloppy joe and the cookies. He was on a diet of high fat, so he needed oil, heavy whipping cream, and something else and then put in it. It sounded awful. But we had to make him a shake out of that. He boiled it down like it was delicious. I said, well, okay. But he had eaten something high fats, and so that's what he ate. But this kid, he hears the word rosary, and he says, can I eat it? And I said, you bet your ass you can. And so he says, okay. He says, wait a minute. So he whispers to his dad, and the father says, this is Paul Leibold. He says, wait a minute, we'll be right back. So he hustles back to the parking lot in Winnebago, and I'm up there talking with the rest of the folks. And moments later, the father and the son come back, and they had a box and a bag around. And in the bag was a bunch of wooden rosaries from Medjugorje. These families, the parents had just come back from a trip to Medjugorje. And so they had all these souvenir rosaries. So everyone got a Medjugorje rosary. And the little boy had a box. He put the box down on the statue pedestal, and he lifts the lid off, really carefully. And he turns back around and puts on his head the Archbishop's light. You want to see something so cute, he wants to make you just laugh your head off. See a little boy trying to wear his great uncle's reminder, and the thing was falling down over his eyes. You know, it was something out of the Walt Disney movie, if you ever do anything about comics. But it was so dang cute. And the little boy says, a little big for me now, but someday I'm going to have my own. I wished I had a video of that, because it was so dang cute. And so he proceeds to sit down on that pedestal up there, and he just stomps us off, in the name of the Father, and the Son. And this kid, oh, he was ready to roll. I'm just kind of chuckling to myself, and the family's all in there, and they all sit down in the logs, and so they're all facing east towards the highway. And I go to the back row, and I sit down on the log, and I'm sitting there with the other father, and we're just in the back row, and I'm just kind of chuckling at this whole thing, just how, fun it was. And we get into about the second deck of the rotary, and it was about 7:30, and it was middle of July, so sun going down about 9 o'clock at that time, but the sun was setting a little bit lower in the sky, but the temperament of the light started to change. And it was very noticeable. I could see the reflection off the trees, there's pine trees up there. You all been up there, you know what I'm talking about? Okay, well, you should take a look up there. It's a little bit different than this thing, but it's a really pretty scene. But I'm up there, and the light is changing dramatically. And I'm looking around and going, this is just really, really weird. And no clouds. And I turn around, and I look at the sun, and the sun's just going, and there's just flashes of color just streaming across the sky, blues, greens, golds, reds. And I've never seen anything like that. And I was very skeptical of any of that stuff ever happened. And I look away, I look back at it again, and it's just, spinning like a pinwheel. And I didn't know what to think. I'd never seen anything like that before. So I turned to the other father and I said, take a look at the sun and tell me what you see. He turns around and he goes, oh dear God, it's a miracle of the sun, just like a magic art. And I'm like, what? And they all knew it instantly. So they all turned around, they're all saying the miracle of the sun going on. And this thing is really going down. I thought the world was coming to an end. I really did. I thought this was it. I dropped down on my knees and I started an act of contrition. Now, when you're scared like that, you can't think of the words. So my act of contrition is something along these lines. Dear Lord, if I've ever done anything to piss you off, I am so sorry. And I promise to try to never do it again. And with that, I'm up above the trees looking down at myself. I thought I died. I really did. I'm looking down on my body, and all these people got their hands over me, singing. Apparently, I went into a state of ecstasy for about half an hour. And they all held guard over me. But in the meantime, while this was going on, another gentleman, a Hispanic man, showed up with his wife and his son. And his son's name is Angelico. And the father's name is Angel. And Angel is an operatic singer. He's known in the South Bend area, and a lot of times he's been on a number of recordings if you've ever heard anything out of Notre Dame. But Angel's just got this wonderful voice, and he just starts singing and just going on. And this man just sung, and just praises and just going on. And I'm looking down on all this, and I'm going, I'm dead. I'm dead. And I'm looking down and I'm just like, this is what death is. And then I hear the voices, my most faithful child, I assure you this is only the beginning. Bring me my children. Bring me all of my children. I'll provide everything you need. Just bring me my children. I knew instantly I wasn't dead. But I knew instantly I wasn't there. 20 feet below me. I was someplace else. but I was above the trees and I could see the vantage from up there, above the tree lines. I could see everything. And I could see the sun setting. And I said, Mother, what is it you want? Because I knew she didn't say who she was. I just knew right away that was a blessed mother. And I said, Mother, what is it you want from me? She says, bring me my children. Bring me all of my children. I'll provide everything you need. Just bring me my children. And I said, but I don't know what to do. She said, you're entitled to answers. Ask any question you want. And so I had an older brother who was a great influence on me. He had encouraged me to do this project in the beginning and to take the chance and step out and do something bigger than I could ever imagine myself being. And that was to attempt to buy this place and do something with it. And my brother was a lifelong diabetic, and he was not doing well. And he was my best friend. And I said, Mother, what's going to happen to my brother? And she says, he's going to die. But I promise you, he will not pass until he has seen this place in all its glory. I said, okay. I said, why isn't it that I've not had any children? She says, if you had children, you wouldn't have been in a position to say yes. I said, you're right. And then I said, what am I going to do? And she says, bring me my children. Bring me all of my children. And she says, now, I want you to fixate your gaze upon what I'm about to show you. Because what I'm going to show you is going to help you when times get tough and the attacks begin. Think of this. So what she shows me, it starts off, all my vision goes just green. All I can see is green, and it's green color. It's something that's living, it's something that's moving, it's like a plasma, it's something out of, something science fiction, but it's a form of life, it's energy, it's there, it's so hard to describe. And then out of that comes a pin dot of blue light, which starts to expand. And it fills most of the green. So the green's on the outside, and there's a ball of blue light in the midst of this. And the ball of blue light is just like, oh my gosh, if we could recreate that color, it's just unbelievable. And out of that ball of blue light then came a pin of white light. Came right fixated right on my eyes, and then it just went. Just nothing I could see, but just this brilliant white light. And I wanted to fall right into it. Everything you could ever want, anything you could ever need, any question you could ever ask was within that light. The sense of oneness can't be understood. You just can't understand it. She says, gaze upon heaven's light. This is what's at stake for millions of souls. Bring me my children. Bring me all of my children. I'll provide everything you need. Just bring me my children. And I said, Mother, this is too much. She says, bring me my children. And I said, I will do as you ask. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I will do as you ask. And with that, I'm back in my body. And I'm looking up. An angel who had been, he's got his face right down in mine. An angel, you gotta say, he's got this hair. I mean, he's like an Adonis. He looked at me. He goes, welcome back, my friend. he goes, you've been with the Blessed Mother, haven't you? And I said, I think so. And he goes, like you can see it in your face. He says, you glow. And they all were looking at me like, you know. So I don't know what happened, but apparently it was quite a show for these folks. And this little boy with the Archbishop's mitre on his head, he was just like, yeah. Yeah. I was like, do it again. Well, with that, I offered everyone to go back in and have a room for the night. He says, no, we need to go. And so they hightailed him out of there. But they all saw the Suns spend a minute. I guess they got an extra show on the side. But my life was changed. I went about my work then, and it was a year and a half later, I had built soccer fields in the fields out across the street. We used to own everything for a mile and a half a mile this side. We had over 200 acres. And I built soccer fields that were some of the best in the country for amateur sports. And I had work going on with the Olympic Development Program. So I had some of the best athletes in the country, especially the Midwest, were congregating here to practice their soccer and try to elevate their game. And I took the opportunity to speak to them and their coaches about all the things I wanted to do, which is to get them to make quality choices. But what we ended up with on this one weekend event was we ended up with 450 kids in this whole facility with all their coaches. So it was over 500 and some people were packed into this place. Every room was full. The hallways were filled with cots. I mean, they came in, they really went to, we had the kitchen going 24/7. I mean, I pumped so much food through that kitchen at night. I had to cook everything. So I not only built the fields, maintained the building, I also cooked the food when the people came in. So I was the head cook, and I had all these people, Ruby and all these others. They're like, how do you know how to do this? I said, I don't. And I said, but she does. And they said, who did? Don't worry about it. But I learned to cook in massive quantities real quick. You know, all the foods, whether it's been chicken or whatever. I mean, I got famous out here for 3 chicken gravy. You know, and if anyone wants the recipe, I don't know what it is, but I know how to make it. But we were cooking for all these people, and I was not getting any sleep, and I was just working my ass off, and everyone was. But it was such an event, and the newspapers were out here, the TVs were out here, they just all wanted to see this great exposure that was going on. And my aunt, who was my godmother, she was working the gift shop, and my brother with the diabetes was in his wheelchair, and he had this big bin I'd set up for him with ice and Gatorade and bottled water, so he's out selling Gatorade and water to the kids and stuff like that. My aunt's selling t-shirts, and, you know, she's just like, you know, just as busy as can be. And I went in and I said, so how's it going? She goes, oh, this place is in all its glory. I looked right through the glass to see my brother on the other side. He was just enjoying the hell out of himself with all these kids around and all like that. And I went into my office and cried because I knew that that was it. My brother had seen the place in all its glory, and that had been declared by no less than my godmother. So I went into my office, I closed the door, I cried, sobbed, composed myself, went back out, knowing full well my brother was about to die. He died 3 months later in the hospital, and I stayed with him. the last 2 months of his life in intensive care, helping him. If he learned to fight, I was going to fight with him. When it was time for him to die, I all would die. But Our Lady was true to her word. She's been a good partner. And a real good boss. I can't complain. We all die. I'm not afraid of that. I've seen what's in store. And I'm going to cut ahead a number of years, about 9 more years. It was 2012. I'd already lost the property. I lost everything. Lost my wife. No one would talk to me. I was the guy who didn't belong. And I was alone. I was in an apartment townhouse in Gurney, Illinois, figuring out what went wrong. I had lawsuits mounting up against me. I already had 3 against me. One from the lender here who was after me. After he'd already taken everything I had, he wanted more. He wanted my wife and I broken up so he could prosecute us independently of each other and be successful in that. He went to prison. He thought I had stolen. He thought I was a thief. I don't know where he got these ideas. And then I had my wife was suing me for divorce. I had her boss was suing me for some crazy thing because he was trying to keep from having to testify because they've been hiding assets together. And in 2008, the big hammer hit. And I've been living with this for 4 years, and that was a federal case from the ex-nun in Fostoria, Ohio, who wanted $30 million from Al, me, and another gentleman named Kevin McCarthy. They were claiming that we were stealing, and we had, under the RICO Act, they were suing us for being in conspiracy to steal the devotion that they owned all the copyrights to and the trademarks to. And they wanted pay to pray. They wanted y'all to pay every time you went to pray for Our Lady of Merit. Because they owned it. She owned it. So she thought. But like I said, you can see it in the sandwich. Well, I had everything against me, and I just didn't feel like I had anything left to give or be gotten from, and I was at that point. I had the gun in my hand, and I was going to end it. It would all be over. I timed it all out, one finger pull and it's over. I'd be with my brother, might go to hell, didn't know. Then it happened. I remember July 14th, 2001, in heaven's light, and what's at stake. And I remembered Our Lady's words to remember what's at stake. And when things get tough, remember heaven's light. And I did. And I got really pissed off. And I started fighting. I put the gun down, and I started fighting. And I became very, very dangerous. not to anyone else around me. But I became, in the federal courtroom, by way of my lack of assets and lack of being a licensed attorney, I had to represent myself because no one would take my case. I mean, there were 232 charges against us. 232. The average federal case is 6. The average RICO case is 4. 232. They wanted to convict me of planting shoelaces on it. It seemed like it was just so crazy. And to try to wear through it, they thought they'd wear us out and we just capitulate and write a big old check. Well, it didn't work out too well for them. Because when you're injured, like the lioness and she's cornered, she gets dangerous. And Our Lady said, stand naked. I will defend you. I didn't have a whole lot of choice. But it got to be 2 more years went by and I was pretty angry. I had some pretty meaningful moments in depositions with the other opposing attorney, and I told some of you folks the other day about this, and I was about to get real French again, so if anyone's offended, I'm sorry, but this is how it went. But I was in deposition, and this woman kept trying to threaten me, saying she was a very, very successful federal prosecutor, never ever lost a case in her life. And I said, well, bitch, you're about to lose this one. And she goes, oh, you can't talk to me like that. I said, I just did. And she goes, wow, let it be on the record that I object. I said, you can object all you want. I said, you're going to lose this case. I said, because you don't know what you're fighting. And she goes, oh, you think you're such a big guy and all like that. Like, when I'm fucking with you, I said, oh, you're not fighting with me. I said, you're fighting with her blessed mother. And she goes, oh. And I said, yeah. And when you fuck with the blessed mother and one of her children, that bitch has claws. But she's going to tear you up. And I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that's what I told her. And I don't in any way think that the blessed mother is a bitch. Man, this woman's even told her. I gave it. And I won her. We ended up getting the trial. And we got into the courtroom. She thought she was going to tear me up. And we got in the courtroom. And the reverse happened. I owned the jury. The jury loved me because I was the only one in the courtroom that wasn't after money. I didn't ask for any damages. I didn't want any damages. But I was the one who probably lost the most at that point. So the jury from day one wanted to know more about me. That they sided and they figured I was the only one in the courtroom who they could trust to tell the truth. And so every time I spoke, there was a 7-week trial. In the course of that 7 weeks, I had 3 hours and 20 minutes of the floor. 3 hours and 20 minutes out of 7 weeks is all I used. The opposing attorney spent over 3 hours just on going over the details of some receipt. And I did my whole case in 3 hours and 20 minutes. And that included my closing argument of 30 minutes, which I only used 4.5 minutes. I gave the rest of it to Alice to wrap around and, finish up this one. So I really had 3 hours. It was incredible. And if you're here tomorrow to hear Alex Beata talk, he was one of the star witnesses. So I had 2 star witnesses at the trial. One was Alex Beata, and the other one was Jan Shear. Back over in the corner there. Jan won the jury big time. She didn't know what she was doing, what she was going to say, but the jury loved her, and they understood right from the start.
And it was just one of those moving moments. But it came down to trial time, and the trial went along really slowly, I thought, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But we ended up winning convincingly, and the jury took 2 days to come to a verdict. And we got called. We got the trial on Ash Wednesday. We got called back in on Friday, and it took probably to read the verdicts that it took for them to come to a verdict, because they had spent all day Thursday asking the judge how could they give Larry $6 million, because I hadn't asked for any damages. I wasn't entitled to any damages, but they kept trying to find if there was a loophole that they could give me an award. And the judge says no, and they kept asking, how about this, what can we do? But they spent the entire day trying to give me damages. So that's what held up their verdict for a day. But at the end, when we came back, it was a clean sweep, 157-0. We won. We got the counts down from 232 to 157 by the end of the trial, and we won convincingly, a clean sweep. But had I not been in the trial, they probably would have split the baby between the two. And had they done that, there wouldn't be anything to talk about here today, because none of the bishops, none of the church folks would even consider this, because no one wanted anything that was tainted in any way, shape, or form. So a lot of the trial was about trademarks and copyrights that have been applied for allegedly in the name of Sister Mary Ephraim, to protect the copyrights and trademarks of the images and the writings. Well, when Al and I started going through all the documents after the trial, we discovered that there was a discrepancy in the signatures between her official documents and the documents for the applications for these copyrights and trademarks. And all of the time she had signed an official document through her career, she always signed it as Sister Marie Ephraim. But on the documents for the trademarks and copyrights, it was Sister Mary Ephraim. And the signatures didn't match up. So it turns out that Sister Millie, as I call her, never filed for those trademarks and copyrights. It was all done by Patricia Fuller. Forged her name, her signature, and they filed for these things. And then instead of having the documents sent to their home in Fostoria, Ohio, they had them sent to an outside agent in the state of California, so that Sister Millie would never see the mail and see these documents about these alleged trademarks and copyrights. So we contend that she never knew about it. But then anyone who wanted to say that Sister Millie was after money is completely wrong. But we would never have this information. We would never have this great victory unless they had sued me and added me to the lawsuit. So, Our Lady has a way of doing things, and I lost everything. When I got done with the trial, I had nothing but an $18,000 credit card debt and an empty pocket. And I don't know if I told you, I had $8.50 in my pocket. I had to get back from Indianapolis to the Chicago area. And I only had $8.50 in my credit cards were being rejected, so I couldn't get gas. So I panhandled. And it was in a snowy blizzard outside the courthouse, and I'm trying to get money to get gas to get back to Chicago. And I'm out there panhandling, and the first guy I approach, I tell him my story. I said, look, here's my card. I said, when I get back to Chicago, I will gladly send you double what it is you give me to help me get home. I said, but I'm in a desperate situation. Can you help me? And he just looked at me and says, I believe you. And he gives me $100. I need like 20. And he gives me $100. And I get home, and I end up calling the guy. I want to know where to send the money to. He says, he says, what were you doing there outside the courthouse anyway? He says, I have to ask you. I said, well, I've been involved in this long trial, and I said, I just wasted every asset I had and all like that. And he says, a long trial. He says, were you involved in the Nunn case? And I go, well, yeah. He goes, you're Larry. And I go, well, yeah. And he goes, oh my God, my brother was Clark, who was the security officer that you talk with every day. He was telling me about you for all this time, about this guy Larry, and like that. He says, keep the money. He says, the story was worth it. He says, I can tell my brother that I helped you out. And I thought, well, I thank you. And I ended up sending the money anyway, just because I just had to do it. But it was just amazing how the stories started getting out, and you never know what's going on behind you when you're not looking. But amazing stories, but it was just like another one of those God moments, little ones, little rewards. But I mean, there's just been so many things that have gone on with us, and I could go on for about the difference. To tell you even about the little boy, Greg Feen. You guys heard about that story, didn't you? One of the first documented healings here. The little boy, Greg Feen, he was 5 years old. And he was dying of leukemia. And his parents are from Fort Wayne, Indiana. And they got to know Irv Koloska, the healer who was here today. And Irv calls me on Tuesday. He says, Larry, he says, I had an experience today, and the Blessed Mother says I'm supposed to bring this little boy from Fort Wayne to Rome City to pray over him in the new chapel. And he says, what new chapel? And I said, oh, well, I just finished a new chapel at the east end of the building. I just finished it 3 days ago. He goes, you're kidding me. I said, no. He says, what am I supposed to do? I said, bring the kid up here. God's going to heal him. And I said, it's a total setup. He goes, you think so? No, sir. Bring him up. So we set up and we prayed over the little boy, and his parents were there. The whole time Irv's praying over the little boy, all this stuff is downloading into me, and it's nothing about the boy. It's all about the father. Father seemed like a good guy. It's a nice family. But everything was about the father. And Our Lady was saying he needs to be the spiritual lion. He needs to lead his family in prayer. And he needs to read John 15, 16, 17. John 15, 16, she kept repeating it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even have a Bible. I still don't have a Bible. And anyway, the family had brought the boy up here against doctor's orders. The folks at Riley Hospital in Indianapolis had allowed the family to go home for one last week and take their son home so he could spend a week with his brother before he would be going back to the hospital, probably never to come out again. And so, but they were told to not take him anywhere. But they disobeyed the doctor's orders and they brought the boy up here. Irv prayed over him. And then and the very next morning, they started driving back to Indianapolis. The whole way back to Indianapolis, the little boys are sitting in the back seat. Mommy, Daddy, I'm not sick anymore. I don't need to go to the doctor. And after miles of hearing this, the mother says, honey, why do you say that? He says, well, the lady told me. And she said, what lady? He said, the lady who was in my room last night said I shouldn't worry. I'm not sick anymore. I'm okay. I don't need a doctor anymore. And she says, well, honey, you're sick. We need to take you in. And I told the mother and the father, I said, whatever the doctors tell you to do, you do. And so they got down there and the doctors said, well, we're going to take some spinal fluid and we're going to go see just how far along we are, because they were going to try some sort of last ditch transplant of some sort. So they said, well, we'll be back in about an hour to start the process. So an hour goes by, no doctor. 2 hours go by, no doctor. 3 hours go by, the doctor walks in. He says, we've got a problem. The mother loses it, thinking her baby's dead. And the doctor says, no, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it that way. we got a problem because we can't find any cancer in the boy's body. And yeah. He said, what took us so long is we thought our equipment malfunctioned, so we helicoptered the rest of the sample over to another hospital in town for them to check it on their machines. We just got the results back and they matched ours. We can't find a single cancer cell in his body. But we want to go ahead and put him through another treatment of chemo with another test group of kids. And the mother said, my baby's fine, but you still want to inject him with poison. And so she remembered what I said. She says, okay. And so they gave their boy up to go get, more treatment. So the little boy goes ahead and gets a full another chemo treatment. Every other kid in his control group went bald as a bean. This kid never lost his hair, never got sick, got a little sleepy, but never got sick. Just became another active little 5-year-old out on the football field. And so he ended up being completely cured. He's grown up now, become a successful young man, about to get married. And he went on to have a successful collegiate athletic career as a golfer. But when he was a freshman in high school, it was in 2010. And in 2010, the Bishop Rhodes here locally was installed. When Bishop Rhodes was going around to check some of the high schools and things like this, he was on tour. He's walking down the hallways, one of the doors was open, and in the back row of the classroom was an empty seat. And there was a history class being taught inside. So he sits down in the back seat just to kind of check things out a little bit and strikes up a conversation with the kid next to him. That kid was Greg Feen. The boy had been healed. And so Greg was now a high school freshman. He's getting this great conversation with the new bishop. They became friends. And then the bishop became friends with his parents, became dinner buddies. And they became very good friends. So this relationship continues to this day, but it was on June the 8th of 2018 that Al and I, at 10 a.m. in the morning, and finally got the final clearance from the federal court that the case was finally over. All appeals have been exhausted. That was at 10 a.m. At 11 a.m., we had a meeting with the bishop at Notre Dame to start turning over to him the documents that we had compiled together for the petition for the supernaturality of events for Our Lady of America. And we had spent 4 years compiling these documents. And we had done all the heavy lifting. And so it's so funny that 1 hour before we had turned this all over to the bishop, everything had been cleared. There was no taint of anything, no hint of anything left. It was all clean. And when we're having lunch with the bishop and we're going over the details of the case, he goes, well, you need this, you need that. He says, and you need miracles. I said, well, physical healings. He said, I've documented 12 such cases that with doctors, notices, and things like that for you folks to go through. And I said, but one case in particular, I just think you need to pay attention to, and that's of a young boy named Greg Feen. The bishop had ordered fish tacos for lunch. Okay, why do I remember this? Because he was about to go all in sideways on a fish taco. And I say the name Greg Feen, he goes, Greg Feen? Greg Feen. I said, yeah, Greg Feen, Fort Wayne, Indiana. He goes, Greg Feen just graduated college. I said, yeah, golfer. He goes, Greg Feen. His mother's Tom and Kathy. I said, yeah, Tom and Kathy Feen are his parents. He goes, Greg Feen. I go, yeah. Greg was sick? I said, Greg was dying. He says, well, how come his parents never told me? I said, because I told them not to. I told them not to tell the bishop until the bishop asked them. He goes, son of a gun. Then he goes and he has his lunch. And it was after lunch, and I just looked at him and said, how's it feel to be used? He just smiled, a big grin. I said, I've been being used since 1999. And I said, but it's a good feeling when you realize that the joke is not on you, but it's about heaven, and that sense of humor heaven has. And so the bishop sat on this egg from June the 8th of 2018. A whole half a year goes by. The following January 2019, he's having an after holiday dinner in the Fiends household with Tom and Kathy, the parents. They have a nice dinner. They end up going into the living room to socialize a little more, maybe have an after dinner drink. I don't know what was there. And the bishop asks Tom and Kathy, he says, I got a question. Is there anything you'd like to tell me about Greg when he was a child? Was he ever sick? And the mother goes, oh, yes. She'd been sitting on this thing since 2001. So imagine 17 years as a mother holding on to this secret. And so the bishop finally asks her, so she starts going on about all this stuff. And so the bishop is finding out that everything I put in the documents was exactly the story they were telling. And so the bishop didn't even know about these people and their credibility. He already knew them intimately. So half the investigation was over with. But when the commission took a look at the case, they still decided that it wasn't a miracle, that it was an act of medicine. And so, and the commission still thinks there's no miracles have happened. So we still pray that Our Lady will still enact a miracle that the bishop and those witnesses can't refute. So we still pray on that. So she's not done yet. So we're still working, and we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep working. Right. They investigated. The commission did their work. They never called a single witness. Yeah. So, to me, it seems that this isn't completed yet. There was inaccuracies, and I think when the bishop was here, I talked with him then afterward last month. July 15th. I think he realized they missed a lot of points in their discussion. And so this isn't over with. So I'm kind of waiting for me to get called in to be talking a little bit more about it. But it's been quite a ride. It's not over with yet. And there's so many more things to talk about that, could just go on and on and on. But, it's just incredible. If anyone was to think that Our Lady of America is a manifestation of some imagination, they're wrong, or this person had just an incredible imagination that was working in concert with God's will. Because there's just no way all these things could have been happening. From all points all over the globe, to all different types of people. And why me? She liked my name? Larry, I don't know. But, good night. Well, you got to go get your rest too. So we'll be here. But yeah, wait for the talk after Mass tomorrow with Alex Beato in Mississippi City. He's pretty compelling. He was another star witness in the trial. Jury loved him too. We just don't know. And it could be any of you too. It probably is in ways big and small that you don't even recognize. There's probably people in your lives that you've affected, and they've, been motivated by your own actions and your own, conviction. So you just don't know. But by you folks all even coming in here from all these different places, for the sake of learning more and diving deeper into devotion, it's so cool. And I hope folks understand that. I don't know if you do or you just do it out of passion, but it's just, for me, it's just like, that's so cool. These people are coming in from all these places. And it's just like, wow. They stop and interrupt their lives to go and dive deeper and deeper into it. But I understand that. I live it kind of every day. And I'm happy just to kind of stay afloat. And not let it kill me. But it's a neat path to be with. She said, bring me my children, bring me all of my children. She doesn't say, bring me my Catholic kids. But when I relate the story of Our Lady of America and what she's looking for, you know, people of all faiths resonate with it. They understand the call to purity and that there needs to be a correction. They all understand it. So it's not just a Catholic thing, but this could be one of those universal, you know, blending moments.
Has Father Stelso taught you how to bring the Blessed Mother all his children?
No, I've been working solo.
So Father Stelso, and when he teaches us the divine will, that we enter into prayer on behalf of all people, all time, past, present, and future. And it's just as simple as saying, Blessed Mother, Lord, I pray.
Oh, I pray about bring me more. I always say.
But I mean, in actuality, in the divine will, you make it happen. I mean, he makes it happen through you. Well, yes,
Yeah,
but at the same
she's wanting the bodies to come here. She wants me to physically get the people here. Some attractions and things like that. So we started off with the sports, and that worked well. But now it's going to be more about the message, and with this is going to bring, I think, even more people that are going to be more like lightning rods and magnets. They go back out, strengthened to be examples, and strengthened as you will too, because even with the divine will and then with this, and it's all merged really together. It's the same Blessed Mother,
right.
you know. But
about like big storm coming, and you're going to get more attacks. You know that the purification of the world is going to happen. You know, talk about not at the end of times, but we're at the end of this era. And then this new era is going to be coming, and you're seeing visions of people how we're going to use this property going forward. I mean, it's almost like how do we get? Do you have any version of the chastisement period to the outcome of when everybody's going to be here in a peaceful state using these property?
do I have any idea when it will happen?
How all this.
Oh, I really don't. That's for heaven to determine. I'm trying to get bathrooms. You know, I mean, you know, really, you know, from day one, when they talked about all these people coming, I said, you know how much toilet paper that is? I mean, really, when they say 100,000 people. So I confer to find out the scale of things, what is needed. I confer with the people that run the University of Michigan football stadium, because they host 112,000 people 6 times a year. Okay? And I asked him, I said, let me ask you, I said, how do you deal with it? And he says, we have over 360 uniformed officers, blah, 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 we got this, got that, got that. I said, how much toilet paper do you use? And they said, we buy toilet paper by the train carload. And the stadium is right next to the train rail.
They have more helpers.
Yeah, they do. Well, we decided today, just for this group here, we needed to, next time we gotta find ourselves local crews, we need at least 4 more people to help facilitate things, because physically it's too much, and we're just starting, you know. We just put all the scaffolding and the paintbrushes and stuff away not more than 3 days ago. Wednesday, this place was a total mess. But I mean, we worked, and we didn't know if we were going to get inspected by the health department or the civil authorities. So we got the blue X's everywhere. You know, and we're trying to be smart and safe. You know, but we're learning. But she said, bring them here. She didn't say what to do. She just said, bring my children. I have full confidence that got a plan and she will make it work. And whether it's through you or the next group or whatever it is, she will do her business, and whether she's doing it through you right now in her own way, shape, or form. But it's about learning about it. And I've never even read the messages because I was told by my own spiritual director not to read these things because it won't be long. Well, he always said that someday you're going to be interrogated and it'll be more like an inquisition. And he says it'll probably make anything you went through the federal trial seem tame because they're going to distrust you. So, but I said, but the truth is the truth. Truth is easy.
They've been rough on everything.
Yeah, and Albert and others have been listening to my stories for all this time. I said, you know, have I ever changed? They go, no. He says, you haven't. He says, you've added details. I said, well, that's all dependent on how much time you have. It
Right,
really
right.
is. And I can talk forever on things. And he says, you talk too much. And other people say, you don't talk enough. We want to hear more. And so I got to put the stuff down in books. And so people can read it. And I've got 2 books actually written, but I can't feel free to really release
You
it.
have a
Just,
nice voice too, so audio.
well,
I like to tell the stories.
well, but you know, Alex, who will talk tomorrow, he just says, well, he says he loves the books because he thinks, you know, the writing is good and I have a different style of writing. It's more, I don't know, I have like a continual dialogue going on with it. So it's just my style of writing. But you got to kind of change things a little bit more because of the way people read in snips, not so much in longer things right now. So it's just a matter of what people will sit still for. But
I know, Larry, I don't know this. You're talking about it.
yeah,
There was a woman that had a tremendous broken leg, and the doctor told her not to go to Victoria, but she did. And while she was there, it was totally healed completely. And the doctor, who saw the x-rays afterwards, said, how could this possibly be? Her leg was totally shattered. And she has a tremendous sense of humor. You know, like yourself, very easy to communicate. She said she went to Medjugorje, and it was on the anniversary. Everybody's on this hill, thousands of people. And she said, I just looked around. Nobody had to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
I mean, how is it possible that everybody's there? How will the time I work for the grounds? I mean,
These hours were at, organization assistant for Tesco and the 100-year anniversary of the academy.
Yeah.
And they're being big, like that's elbow. I mean, nobody went to that. Nobody went to that.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, I'm into miracles, and if it can happen, but I have to think about logistics, you know, because when we had the building working and a busload of people would show up, they all had to run to the bathroom right away. And I didn't have large bathroom facilities, so they'd all run to the individual rooms and use all those rooms, which caused a bigger problem for us because they had to go clean all the individual rooms. The health department still did, so it really made a lot of work for us. And then we ran out of toilet paper. You want to see an angry woman run out of toilet paper, you know, and give her paper towels. You know, it got very upsetting, but it wasn't intentional. I just wasn't ready for all these people to show up. But I learned long ago, and you get good toilet paper. Get the best you can afford because it matters. But no, for me, it's all about trying to take care of the people when they arrive. And a big concern I have is for people with disabilities. And I got a definite lesson in that here in the last 6 weeks for myself. And I understand the need for handicap parking and ramps and accessible areas firsthand. You know, everything is a lesson in learning. And I do appreciate it. And I really tried when we're building this ramp out here and the accessibility portions here. You know, there's nothing too good for somebody who's making the effort, who's in need. It's going to come all this way. You know, they are the celebrities when they get here, in my mind. And they always have that. Somebody shows up in a wheelchair or special needs, there's never enough I can do for them. You know, and that's just the way I think it has to be. She said, bring me all of my children. You know, and these are the ones that they may not get a physical healing, but anything you do to strengthen your spiritual is far more worth it. Your fruit must endure. Physical won't last, but spiritual endures. And that's what the Bible verse was for this young father. When he went back to read his Bible, it was not you who chose me, but I who chose you to go forth and bear fruit. Your fruit must endure. And at the end of that, there was a note to go to another scripture reading. And he had gotten his Bible from his father. So his father had put this note in there years and years ago. And so he went to the other chapter verse, and it said, it was God who healed the child. That young man, I didn't see him for nearly 19 years. And I ran into him this last year, the father. And I took a basket of things from Our Lady of America to him, rang their doorbell, and gave it to him. He says, who's this from? I said, Larry Young wanted me to have this. And he says, Larry Young, where is he? And I said, I'm right here. And he goes, oh my God, it's you. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I can't thank you enough. And I said, well, for what? He says, you changed my life. He said, you don't know what you did to me that day when you told me to be the spiritual lion. And he says, from that moment forward, my life has changed. I was on a path to destruction. But from that moment forward, my life was forever changed. And I did start praying and leading my family. My business took off. He says, I was blessed in so many ways. I thought about you every day. And I said, well, you never called. He says, I didn't know how to find you. I said, that's okay, I'm here. I thought about you too. But you just never know. And I was just delivering a message for him, but it wasn't, I just was a vessel. It wasn't anything I knew. It was just like, this is for him. And so that's why I have one, he was to be the spiritual lion of his family. And so that's why when Our Lady on June the 27th gave me this vision here of what she wanted, she showed me this vision here and she says, will you do this for me, please? And she showed me all this. And so I figured out how to get this all done for decorating. And so we started this on June the 27th and finished it on July the 15th, all this in here. But to create the heavenly night with all the stars of heaven, and out of the stars of heaven came 50, the golden stars to represent these United States, that Our Lady is leading out of heaven's light. Here comes the 50. And in the gallery, waiting for Our Lady, there's a gallery where her children wait in a room of purity, pure white walls with the golden bands of purity encircling them, where her children are waiting for it, honoring her as queen of the country. And then standing in guard around her on the 4 posts, you will see lions' heads. And those lions' heads I've added in, and that's my artistic license to reflect the fathers of our American families, who stand vigilant as the spiritual lions of their families, guarding the purity of their families in honor of Our Lady of America. These are very simple, natural things I think to do. If men want to be good fathers, and we put it upon them, and we give them that challenge, I think they'll rise up just like young athletes that I had, every time I would raise the bar on these guys, and I only coach boys, but the more I challenged them, the more they succeeded. If I gave them a low threshold, they were mediocre, but if I challenged them to excel, they all wanted to excel. And I think what we've done is we've lowered the bar too much, our level of expectation. I think it's okay to expect more. I think it's okay to demand and expect quality. And I think it's okay to try to do more than you thought you could do. I did. I didn't think I could ever do it. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do anything like this. It's just too big. You know how many nights I would lay here alone in the building, cry, weeping, for fear that I totally screwed my life up and that of my entire family, and just praying for guidance as to what to do. Because this place didn't come with an instruction book. It came with a commitment I made to Our Lady 3 times when she asked if I would do what she asked. And I did. And I didn't know what it was. And she really just told me then the one time, bring me my children. And she's never told me to do anything. She's always said, please. Because she respects the free will. And I think she's always been giving me a way out. But I'm not going to run. I'm not going to back away. I'm not going to quit. I've never quit. But when I would lay here at night, I would fixate on this stained glass window up here. And when you look at it tomorrow, when you study that one pane of window, that one window has everything of the Catholic faith in it. All these other windows have a certain story or a certain segment. This one has the entire story of the Catholic faith. It's all in the one window. And I never understood why that one window meant so much to me. Because, like I said, I wasn't a churchy person. But I thought I had faith. But I don't even think I have faith anymore. I have knowledge. I've been given something that's so beautiful with the knowledge. And with knowledge comes responsibility. Faith is like being a Chicago Cubs fan. You think every year, this is our year. We're going to win it all this year. And 1 in 100 times it does, apparently. But being a Chicago Cubs fan around August or September when the team fails inevitably, everyone says, oh, your heart was in the right place. So you have plausible deniability. Everyone lets you off the hook. But when you are given knowledge of something, that's all taken away. You become responsible. When you know the right thing, you've got to follow through on it.
You're talking here, I sort of sense you struggle, you win, and then you think, how am I going to do this? This is another struggle. I'm going through another struggle. And so my thought was to ask you, how do you get through these things? And all of a sudden the thought occurred to me. You know you've been given a son. You said here tonight, you acted once when you thought it was. When you saw that white light come on.
Yeah.
So now, why would you never have a doubt at any time? And if you did, why don't you just see that light all the time?
If I expressed doubt since then? If I expressed doubt about anything since 2012?
Where am I going to put you?
Well, I'm not worried about where I'm going to get it. I just don't know how much I got to get.
Don't worry about it.
No. I got to find a way to get it. You know, it's someday, it's just going to be,
man, somebody's got to answer this question. How much are we going to order? You know, and it's just these things that somebody will come along that'll be a part of this group, and it's going to be that person. You know, but it's just, you have to think about when you're in the human services business that there's a lot more to it than just a statue and, you know, a church or chapel type of thing.
Why don't you ask them more tissue in advance? We're expecting a big deal.
Yeah,
I'd love for you to be a part of it.
yeah, Kimberly Clark, you know, all these guys, but I gotta get toilets first. You know, right now, I got rental pots out there right now, so those are, it's hard to get even rental toilets right now, because all the COVID thing, everyone's having their parties at home. I didn't realize it was that difficult. It took me almost 2 weeks to find these. And, but no, I don't have doubts about anything, it's just a matter of,
I guess
where the
I'm
source
saying,
is.
I'm saying, because I can relate,
mm-hmm.
you know, I'm going through stuff, but I want to. How is this all going to happen?
How is this gonna happen?
No, I'm saying,
Oh,
but when I see you struggle, just as you did for kids, I'm thinking, I don't want to see this guy go through this problem. He's doing so much for our mother. What can you do to help you or make you feel better that, you know,
no, you are. This is the first. We're just getting to a point now where people like you and others can begin to start helping. Because the real dirt work had to be done. You know, the digging out for the foundation and things like that. You know, last year at this time, we couldn't even allow anyone to certain areas of the building because the black mold was just so bad. I mean, it was bad. I had to work in here for the first 14 months in a Tyvek suit, and a respirator, and, you know, full protection. And all my boys did too. And we had to have the air tested on a weekly basis to see if we disrupted any more mold. And I was in here and I became an expert on mold eradication. And right now, the air in here now is remarkable as far as the cleanliness of it. And this whole end of the building. There's areas at the other end of the building I wouldn't suggest, you know, staying in too awful long, but it's palatable, you can get through it. But that end of the building down there will probably end up dropping to put in a new structure in its place. Because what we really need out here is a room, it could be like a convocation area where we can extend our season into the fall and start earlier in the spring. We could heat and cool effectively. To have groups that we can partition off and have up to 800 people, I'd say, being inside. You know, so it would be more effective as a facility for learning, not just about this particular topic, but like I would like to do would be a learning academy under the auspices of Archbishop John Holt, because his whole thing is about information and trying to teach and to fight the attacks that were happening. It was 100 years ago that yellow journalism was at its height. William Randolph Hearst made most of his money attacking Catholics and writing articles about things like that that are of a destructive nature, and attacking Catholics as vampires and other, you know, bad terms and things like that. And that was why Archbishop Noel, who Father Noel at that time, started the publication of Sunday Visitor, which then became Today's Catholic. And he started that in defense of the faith. And that was started in Huntington, Indiana. And he also was the guy that brought us a collection envelopes. So, but with all these possible things going forward, you know, I have a lot of faith, and I know that you'll find that you do too. But the toilet paper is just an example of like, no one really thinks about when all these people are coming, we're going to have enough. Am I going to have enough water? You know, what if somebody takes ill? How are we going to evacuate them from the south end of the hill up out to the place that we can get them safe, you know, medical care? You know, these types of things. Because when you invite people into your home or your property where you ultimately become responsible,
in a way to affect their safety. So these are all more things of the human nature. The spiritual stuff is Our Lady's job, and the Holy Spirit will take care of that. I have all the confidence in the world in that. I've seen it. It happened today again. It was a beautiful thing to sit there and watch everything that happened today. And I don't know if anyone kept track, but we had Holy Mass. We had exposition of the Eucharist. We had a healing service. We had reconciliation, all going on at the same time. You talk about the Holy Spirit flooding this place. I mean, if anyone was going to have a healing, it was going to be today. And the feast of the, it's like, where do we stop?
They gotta shut down. You're welcome to continue on.
Okay.
Let's go to this one group.
Well, I think folks want to probably get out of here, everyone's heading home. So, anyway, that's what I've got. So,
Thank you, Larry.
we'll be back around. Oh, thanks for hanging in.
Is there anybody?
Yeah.